that is the epitome of irony. And I don't think this is going to be a mea culpa. I think this is going to be something that is going to eventually be limited hangout and try to dismiss the role of the BBC in the Jimmy Savile scandal. Now, for those that are not aware of what the Jimmy Savile scandal is, you had this TV DJ, right? He was this big personality over in the United Kingdom, and he was connected to the royal family. He had all these allegations, even while he was alive, of sexual misconduct and abuse. And later on, it was revealed that this guy was, in fact, a serial child abuser, a serial pedophile, period, with some of the biggest connections out there. And then beyond that, because when they really started investigating this, they saw that the BBC was covering it up. They saw that, there was this cover for a guy that was holding giant checks for children with Margaret Thatcher, right? A big cover for this guy who was also a necrophiliac and sexually abused people in hospice. That's the kind of sicko Jimmy Savile was. And now the BBC is actually going to be doing a piece on the guy where they're going to make a drama about him. Can't make this stuff up. Can't make this stuff up. The BBC has announced its plan for a mini-series about the disgraced late TV personality Jimmy Savile after, for decades, being involved in a cover-up of what this monster was up to. Now, there were stories out there that Savile was so close to Prince Charles, for instance, he may have been considered as the godfather to one of his children. Somebody they knighted, had all this access. Do you think that MI5 and MI6 and those that surrounded the royal family didn't know that he was a serial pedophile? When you have the FBI knowing somebody like Lord Mountbatten, or as they refer to him in the memo, Lord Mountbottom, okay, as another serial abuser of children, somebody who mentored Charles was his uncle, right? When they know that, the FBI all the way back in the day, do you think that the MI5 and MI6 aren't aware of the kind of monster that Jimmy was? Do you think the BBC wasn't aware of the kind of monster that Jimmy was? And yet, once again, how much do you think they're going to point those things out in this mini-series, huh? The Reckoning, which will be shown on BBC One, will tell the story of the presenter's rise and the sexual abuse scandal that emerged after his death. And it was only allowed to emerge after his death because of all the people out there that were putting pressure, all the people out there that had firsthand evidence, all the instances of abuse. That's the only reason. Executive producer Jeff Pope said it was a story that has to be told. He said we must understand why a man like Jimmy Savile seemed to remain immune for so long to proper scrutiny and criminal investigation. Really? And you're going to do that on a series on BBC One? You're going to explore that and understand it? Bullshit. Bullshit. You're going to put out a limited hangout fluff piece that sensationalizes the most abhorrent parts of this guy's criminal behavior. Stop lying to us. It is not yet known who will be cast in the lead role. Savile was one of the UK's top entertainers in the 1970s and 80s, known for TV shows like Top of the Pops and Jim'll Fix It, as well as stints on BBC Radio 1. After his death in 2011, an ITV documentary investigated claims of sexual abuse against him, again, that were around when he was alive, leading to further allegations of abuse and a string of public inquiries. These found that the broadcaster had leveraged his involvement in organizations such as charities, hospitals, prisons, and the BBC to prey on hundreds of people, mostly vulnerable young females. Sensitivity and respect. BBC drama controller Piers Wagner said the new drama did not intend to sensationalize these crimes, but give voices to his victims. And again, folks, I don't know what to expect other than a whitewash. He said, we will work with survivors to ensure their stories are told with sensitivity and respect, and to examine the institutions which Jimmy Savile was associated with and circumstances in which these crimes took place. Yeah, they're going to bring down the royal family. They're going to bring down the BBC. They're going to bring down those charitable organizations that somehow we see globally being used as fronts to abuse children, not just in the United Kingdom. We see the same thing in this country. Second Mile Foundation, anybody? Franklin scandal, anybody? Just putting it out there. Drama has the ability to tackle sensitive real-life subjects and consider the impact of a crime on survivors and what lessons can be learned to stop this from ever happening again. And you look even what Netflix was able to do with their whitewash of the Jeffrey Epstein story, right? Completely circumventing any evidence of intelligence being involved, any evidence of Robert Maxwell and Ghislaine Maxwell working with the Mossad, right? British intelligence, U.S. intelligence, relationships to people like Adnan Khashoggi. None of that stuff was explored in the Netflix. Instead, they went to the victims and they sensationalized that. And you see they're already working with the victims and telling you they're not going to sensationalize it, right? But that's not what this should be about. This should be about what? Exposing the powers that be, the institutions that allowed this to happen. In 2016, an independent investigation found that the BBC missed opportunities to stop monstrous abuse by the presenter and DJ because of a culture of fear. They missed those opportunities. That doesn't sound like public relations bullshit to you? Because it sure sounds like it to me. The Dame Janet Smith review identified 72 victims of Savile in connection with his work at the BBC, including 8 who were raped. 11 of his victims were younger than 12 years old. See how that comes later in the article? You see that? They talk about girls, young girls. We're talking about 11 victims that weren't even 12, that were prepubescent. This guy was the sickest of fucks. Okay? Period. How people did not go to prison for protecting him shows you the corruption levels. The BBC also criticized for dropping a Newsnight investigation into the sexual abuse claims. Oh, yeah. Which was then picked up by ITV. Okay, so they had all this stuff. The BBC's former director general, George Entwistle, later admitted to MPS this had been the wrong decision, really. The Reckoning will be written by Neil McKay, who is also behind, Appropriate Adult, the BAFTA-winning drama about serial killer Fred West. Never saw it. So there you go. It's right there, and it's kind of a slap in the face. A direct slap in the face to anybody with common sense that thinks that the BBC is finally, going to do their mea culpa and come clean and really tell the true story of why they were allowing Jimmy Savile or Savile and others, because it wasn't just him. Okay, he wasn't like, the lone guy. I promise you that. Okay, I promise you that. So I want to move on to another sexual abuse story. Another story about an entertainer with a multitude of young girls that have now come forward, and there's evidence that he abused. Only this one's not dead. And this one's actually in jail. And this one might have just gotten a little bit of a taste, if you will, of prison justice. And I want to say this right now, I am not endorsing violence in any way, shape, or form when we talk about this story. But it came out that earlier, I believe last week, R. Kelly was attacked in prison as he's awaiting trial, finally, for the multitude of crimes that we've known that he had taken part of for 20 plus years. Marrying Aaliyah when she was 15 years old, falsifying documents, sex tapes of him with, underage teenage girls where he urinated on at least one of them. All out there. All out there. And it took a television series, Surviving R. Kelly, to bring this information really to the forefront and challenge people to take a look at what was actually going down. And finally, the walls closed in. And now, well, it looks like Kelly may have taken a beating in prison. And guess what? Prison guards did not lift a finger. Security video shows prison guards did not lift a finger to stop R. Kelly from being beaten by a fellow inmate, his attorney claimed. Amid reports, employees could even have encouraged the brutal attack. Imagine that prison justice occurs where guards that have, sons and daughters that don't like child molesters in the first place might allow another inmate to extract justice on a person like that. R. Kelly's attorneys say security video shows prison guards failed to stop the singer from being beaten by a fellow inmate inside Chicago's Metropolitan Correctional Center. According to the motion filed Friday, Kelly, 53, is suffering significant physical and psychological injuries stemming from the August attack, which his lawyers claim could have been encouraged by staffers at the facility. So this was all the way back in August. We're talking about over a month ago. Kelly is being held at the MCC as he awaits trial on several dozen counts of state and federal sexual misconduct charges in Illinois, Minnesota, and New York. And hopefully he will be convicted of all of them, and he will do the rest of his life in prison because he deserves to stay in prison. An incident report from the U.S. Bureau of Prisons claims Kelly was ambushed by gang member Jeremiah Shane Farmer as he slept on the bottom bunk of his prison cell on August 26th. On that day, Farmer managed to separate from prison guards and enter Kelly's cell, where he repeatedly stomped on the singer's head. The star was only saved when security personnel deployed pepper spray. So eventually, I guess, security did come in on this. That is the quote-unquote gentleman, Jeremiah Shane Farmer, that took out a little prison justice on Kelly that you see right there. And I don't know, do you think he could be gang affiliated with all those face tattoos? Who knows? But in their new motion, Kelly's attorneys claim that the jailhouse security video shows more troubling version of events. They write that the footage shows Farmer was able to roam a great distance away from the guards, and no one at the MCC raised a finger to stop Mr. Farmer and attacking Mr. Kelly until after Mr. Farmer was well into the beating. An unresolved issue remains as to whether MCC personnel encouraged and then allowed a beating of Mr. Kelly to take place. Well, let's talk about it for a second. To think that, number one, everybody that works security at a prison is, fully on the up and up, is beyond corruption would be incorrect, right? I'm not saying all prison guards are corrupt, but there are a certain amount that are responsible for allowing or even distributing drugs within these areas, right? Whether they're letting things past security on purpose for a kickback or sometimes smuggling those things. There have been numerous reports of sexual misconduct when it comes to these people. I mean, we go on and on and on and on and on. Just like police have their corrupt individuals, but we still need police. Same thing goes with prison guards, law enforcement. And quite frankly, I've known some people that have worked in prisons, and you can only imagine how shady these areas are. Universally, however, no matter how corrupt a police officer is, unless they are somehow a child molester themselves or for some reason sympathetic to them, these type of things happen. These type of things happen. Now, to me, the problem would be solved if, he's so afraid for his life. You can go to solitary. Listen, I have no sympathy for this guy. And I would hope the vast majority of you out there have no sympathy for this guy. At the same time, we're not calling for violence at all. I want to see justice served. I want to see this guy go to trial. I want to see his crimes exposed. I want the judge to throw the book at him. And then I want him to spend the rest of his life at a similar facility. I'd rather not see him wield his fame and power and distort the case to the fact that he gets, a light sentence like a Claire Bronfman and is allowed to essentially stay at a country club type prison, if you want to call it a prison. I'll call it a country club like facility for a woman who was clearly involved in the trafficking of underage girls. And worse. Because when we're talking about trafficking, we're not talking about the hands-on abuse that she helped take part in.